morning, guys. Welcome back to another awesome throttle video. Continuing the STI project. Mickey and Ricky have been crushing it with the installs on this car, and we are getting super close to actually finishing this project and going out for that first test drive. We have Nazar coming down from Delicious Tuning. We're gonna be installing a flex fuel kit, and we're gonna be putting on a base map so that we can at least start the car and drive it up to the dyno, hopefully later this week, as long as coronavirus doesn't shut everything down.
So as you can see, we installed the crisp new clear lenses, which make it feel a little more crispy. So we're happy with those. Those are all sealed up with butyl and mounted back in the car. Now we have to put all the wiring in. If you guys watched the previous video, Chris from Fly Rides gave us all these wiring harnesses that have to be put in the car in order to make all the extra lighting features function. So the reason we have to put the bumper back on is because I want to hide all that stuff out of sight. We don't want a bunch of that stuff laying across the core support. So, gonna get into that now, get all that stuff mounted up and wired nicely and hidden away, and then we can get the bumper back on. All right, quick little update on the wiring situation. I did go ahead and already kind of power and ground our stuff, and I tied it into the factory setup. So as you can see here, this is our power wire for our little module. I did go ahead and mount the push button switch. I hid over here under the fender, and we do have some cool Perrin fender shrouds coming in. So hopefully this isn't covered by that, but I think the Perrin fender shroud starts about right here. So this should be a nice little trick spot for that location. Power there, ground is built in here. So now we have to mount the two profile Prism boxes, and these have a short connector on them right here, basically like a jumper connector that brings them both together. So I'm gonna mount both of these boxes probably down under here somewhere, and then one of these will run across to this headlight and plug in here, and the other one will plug in right here when hidden away underneath the core support. So hopefully we can don't have to see any of these wires. That's the hopes.
A few minutes later.
So let me show you where I've positioned our little black boxes for our headlights. They control the headlight colors. So I've actually snuck them down through a hole behind the battery here. So we'll go ahead and get these mounted probably somewhere up here, out of the way. And we've got, it looks like, a pretty decent place to ground. Either right here, I can probably slip a nut on the back of there with the ground pinched in there, or I can come over here to the chassis and grab something off of the rail over here. Well, that was a pretty easy install, but as you can see, it looks basically stock. You don't see any of the wiring, and it's all basically hidden. I ran the wiring for the little boxes. One goes to this headlight, the other one runs across under here and plugs into this headlight. I've got it all tucked under the core support here and fastened with the alongside the hood prop, or the hood pull. So it's not gonna fall down or get caught on anything, and it's out of sight. So one thing that's gonna be probably pretty hard for you guys to see at this point is the little control box. You can see those teal screws right there. So I've got it basically mounted to the chassis there, and then the wiring actually comes out underneath here, slips through here. I've got it all zip tied together real nice, and then this one slips up, zip tied here, slips up under the core support, and this one slips up into the bottom of the light. And huge shout out to Fly Ride for all of the help on this. Chris, you're a legend. And also Jay that did the custom lighting. We downloaded the XK Glow app, and we should be able to just turn them on with the app. So let's see if it works.
Hey, boom, you did it right.
I guess, so it's a good try.
They look so much better with the fresh lenses. You can really see that honeycomb. I guess the question is what color do you run? Or you don't really have to make a decision.
Ooh,
you can
the blue, though.
The blue, the match. There's the headlight.
Headlight. high beams.
I hear it.
Yep, both high beams are working. Cool.
Done. Let me turn the lights off real quick.
Let's see.
Whoa. Oh my God.
This is pretty cool.
It's a cool app.
You can slow down the strobes really slow or fast. You can.
That's crazy. Whoa.
All right, guys, well, as you can see, we've moved on to fitting the front bumper back on the car after the front mount intercooler has been mounted. As you can see, we've got good clearances there. I've left the cardboard on so we don't screw up any of the fins for the time being. But one thing we did run into was we've got our APR brake ducts in place. These things are absolutely beautiful. The nice thing is they're actually a functional brake duct kit if you want to buy the back half of it. You hook up an orange high temperature brake line or brake duct, and it goes to a plate on the back of your brake rotor and ducts cold air directly through your front bumper to the back of your braking system. As you can see here, guys, we've got a big problem. This intercooler pipe is smack in the way of this tube. So what I'm gonna do is I've actually drawn up what I think is the area that we need to remove. I'm gonna start with the small area first, and then this is where I think we're gonna actually end up. But I'm gonna start there, push this guy into place, and sort of sneak up on it. This is such a beautiful part that I really don't wanna make it ugly. So I'm only gonna take away as much as we need to not be rubbing on the intercooler pipe.
Now it is time to install the Delicious Tuning Flex Fuel Kit. Unfortunately, we have to go backwards a couple steps here, right? So we had to take off the charge pipe. Mickey's gonna unbolt this just to make this a little bit easy to install. And essentially we're gonna be tapping into the fuel lines here, and we're gonna be installing this beautiful flex fuel sensor and all the lines from Delicious Tuning. And that is so that we can run their flex fuel kit and run E85 or 91 or 93 or pretty much anything, and any different ratio of different types of fuels. So the sensor will automatically adjust. Obviously on something like E85, it's gonna make a lot more power as opposed to running 91, which is what we are stuck with here in California. Some of you guys might have 93, but the best we can get is 91 at our gas pumps. Piece.
ECA now. This guy, you got your flex fuel sensor harness.
Usually you double stick or Velcro it to here.
Do you go like this?
Yep.
So originally we had planned to do all this actually at Delicious Tuning on the dyno, basically do the flex fuel install, the flash, and then go straight to the dyno. But obviously with the coronavirus stuff going on, we weren't able to do that. So huge shout out to Nazar and Bill and everyone at Delicious Tuning. They are still processing orders and shipping stuff, but they're not taking any walk-ins or any customers at their facility. So we're doing this now down here. We're gonna get a base map on the car so that the car will actually fire up with the DW injectors. And then we should be able to do some data logs, and then hopefully, as things calm down, we'll be able to head up to Delicious Tuning and get this car on the dyno. Crossing my fingers that that goes to plan.
The next day.
All right, guys, well, it's like a ghost town around here at the shop because of this whole coronavirus scare. I'm here by myself today, and I'm gonna go ahead and knock out a few things that we need to do to get this Subaru off the rack and back on the road. And I'm gonna start with getting these Perrin 25mm wheel spacers onto the car. We currently have some on here already. These are out of my personal collection, so we're gonna pop these off. We use these for test fitment purposes. We keep a nice complement of these around the shop so that when we do car builds, we can figure out wheel offsets and stuff. If we can't get the offset we need, we have some spacers that will either help us calculate offset, or if we want to run spacers. So spacers do have a time and a place, and on this car in particular, we're running Cosmos wheels, and we needed to push them out about an inch to get the clearances that we needed on the brakes, and also to fill out the wheel wells. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss these Perrin wheel spacers on this thing. They look pretty nice. They are hub centric, and all the torque specs are right there on them. So I'll go ahead and take off our test spacers, put these guys on, and it should be a quick process, and we'll be on to the next thing. As I expected, that was a pretty simple installation of the Perrin 25mm hub centric spacers. I'm gonna go ahead and use some extreme pressure lube. This is a little trick that I learned from one of the race teams I work for. Instead of using an anti-seize, which inevitably gets all over your hands, face, and everything else that you touch throughout the day that you're working on, this extreme pressure lube is more of a gel, and it does the same thing. It doesn't allow the threads on the lug nuts and the studs to gall up. You can get this at any good machine shop, supply store, or really decent hardware store usually has this type of stuff. It's called extreme pressure lube. And I put this on all the lug nuts and threaded items that we have around the shop to keep them from getting messed up, especially if the whatever nut and bolt's coming on and off a lot. I also want to stress that it's super important when you guys put lug nuts on to not just gun them on. We picked up this electric torque wrench from Eastwood. It's a really nice part, and comes with a calibration certificate, and I have actually used electric torque wrench at Louis' shop at DNA Garage. They have the snap-on one, and this one seems to be about the same. Programming is really simple and straightforward, and I like the vibration and beep that it gives off when you hit the torque spec. I'm going to be putting these to 88 foot-pounds of torque as recommended by Perrin, and that just happens to also be the torque spec that I use on lug nuts whenever I put lug nuts on wheels. Anywhere between 85 to 90 foot-pounds is sort of my go-to. Everybody has their own, and that's mine. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up by putting some of the pressure lube on these studs, get our wheels back on, get our lug nuts back on, so this thing can get put on the ground. All right, so got my ABS materials ready here. I got about, I don't know, 6 or 8 sheets of it. I cut up some strips of cardboard. I'm gonna use this as templating. I've got some Sharpie markers, some scissors, tin snips to cut the plastic, and a razor knife. That's about all the tools you'll need for this project. One thing I wanna try to do is I think I wanna try to make these pretty modular. So I'm gonna make a small one that's gonna go basically on the bumper portion to cover up this ugliness right here, or this gaps. I think it's hard for you guys to see, but basically there's our inner panel, our chassis, our bumper, and then basically our body kit. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces all coming together right here, and then it splits apart here because the body kit meets the over fender up here, and there's a bolt inside, which you can see here. So I think I'm gonna make one piece that goes here, and I'm gonna try to make one continuous piece that bolts into here, and it's gonna close off this gap. Templating with cardboard is a key, and then transferring your template over to the black plastic will be the next step, and then we can worry about fastening it to the inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. One trick that I've been perfecting over the last few times I've done this is actually heat molding. This ABS plastic is actually really good with heat, and you can kind of just shape it with a heat gun. As you can see, I was able to fold this corner back against our factory shielding, and what I can do now is actually fasten this in here, and then it becomes actually a structural part of the car and to keep this from flopping around, which is pretty cool.
A little later.
All right guys, well that's one of the first panels, so is in, and it's crazy how much strength this added after I molded it in here. Pretty excited with the heat molding and happy that I'm able to do it. I used a little Downstar hardware in here to kind of finish it off. All right, so now that the back portion is done, I can move on to the other, I guess it's more like 7/8 of the front of the fender well. I already went ahead and made up a template for sake of time here, and I'm transferring that to the ABS plastic. This is gonna cover the majority of the wheel well. I'll show you where it's gonna go real quick. So we're trying to close off this area here. I'm gonna use this fastening point here for this. So I'm gonna slip this in behind the fender flare and down far enough that we can use it to capture this bolt hole. And then what happens is this goes straight against the inside of our over fender, and then it will get fastened to the inner wheel well like this. And what that does is actually closes everything off. We're not gonna get any debris or rocks up inside our door jambs or inside of our fender well. It's also gonna add a little bit of structure. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut out that ABS and get that piece in the car. All right guys, well that took about 45 minutes to build these out. I'm gonna go ahead and jump on the driver's side rear now. I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. I think it's not OE, but it's a very nice completed look in here, and I think it should do the trick. So I went ahead and left us access to our mounting hardware there, used the provision for the fender to mount there, and I went ahead and molded it around the factory unit up inside, and it goes smack against the inside of the fiberglass fender, which will certainly keep all of the debris out from between our fender and our body, which will help with just overall paint life and all that, as well as sealing elements out.
One eternity later.
All right, well, as the saying goes, if it were easy, everybody would do it. It's been about, I don't know, hour and a half, and I finally got some headway on the front right wheel well. I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. The problem is with the materials that I got, it's not really long enough, so I actually had to make a patch panel that goes in here. It was a good place because the fender reaches out pretty far right here, and I'm able to use the extension piece to actually close off this area. So I'm pretty happy with that. I used aluminum rivets. They're basically like a speedway rivet, and those are basically attached to either the chassis or the original plastic barrier. And what I did was I actually used the heat gun and heated up the ABS plastic and gave myself a nice recess area there to get to the fastener that holds the fender made a relief cut right here. And then also down here on the bottom as well, I made a little bracket that connects to the factory bumper. So now this thing's like fully capable of basically taking the turbulence of the air coming through the front duct and housing that air in this area without flopping around. So as you can see, we have an air duct here. This was meant to go to the brake ducts, but we are not using it as a functional brake duct. Okay, so this is just gonna be flowing air for the cold air intake, which is right above it. And it's also ventilated out the side here as well. So some of the air will find its way out the side, some of the air will find its way in and up, so we don't have a positive pressure situation inside that cavity. And I'm gonna go ahead and get back on this tomorrow, tackle that front left first thing, then I've got a bunch of other stuff to jump on after that. All right guys, we're back. And today I came into a pretty awesome package from our friends over at Turn 14, who has sent us some Perrin goodies. And this is the Fender Shroud Kit that we're actually gonna be installing today. Comes with all the hardware you need, and also comes in our favorite color to tidy up the engine bay a little bit. And they go in here like this, fills up that gap that's kind of unsightly right there. And we'll add some color to the bay. But I'm gonna go ahead and toss these in, see how it looks. All right, well that was easy. 3 simple bolts. Toss that bad boy in, and it really complements the other color that we have in the engine bay. I'm gonna go ahead and knock this one out real quick too. Probably the simplest install you can do, and cleans up the engine bay real nice. And now I'm moving on to our front lip. Now this is a front lip that was made by the guys that made our body kit, Mountain Rider. And it's essentially a front lip that they make, but they widened it to accommodate our wide body kit. Now as far as I know, this is a one-off lip at the moment. It's basically been custom made. It was actually for the owner of the company's car, and he decided that he wanted us to use it on ours. So he dropped it off, we sent it off to SOS Customs. They shot some satin black clear on it, just like they did on all the rest of the carbon and black bits on this car. So it all matches. And now I'm gonna go ahead and try to line this thing up. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use a combination of 3M two-sided sticky tape, foam tape, and also probably just some self-tappers to get started. So I can get this thing mounted in its location and figure out how it's actually gonna sit. At that point I can go back, remove it back off, and put in nut certs or however I want to be able to mount it so that we can easily take it on and off should we want to. Alright guys, well I got some temporary fasteners in there to hold it on so that the boys can check it out when they come in. I've been the only one in the shop for the last couple days. It's been really quiet around here, but pumping out the installs for you guys and filming it as I go. I'm gonna leave this how it is. It's nice and sturdy. It's 3M taped and it's got 4 fasteners through the bottom. Before I go crazy making a full mount up system for it, I wanna make sure everybody's into it first. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the ground, check it out, see how it looks, and you guys can maybe make a decision. Well, it definitely adds a nice look to the front of the car. Shout out to Mountain Rider. This is a cool part. I think once it's finalized and goes to production, it'll be minty. And it's a great add-on to the kit because it is aggressive and it does add that extra height to the front of the car that I think it needs so much. The last thing I want to do before I take off is mount up our Sabon carbon. This is the Koki model, basically the carbon fiber grill replacement for the factory piece. Now it looks exactly the same as the factory component, however it is made out of carbon fiber. And we actually sent this up to SOS and had them do the same treatment that they did on our hood and our wing, and that is apply a satin clear over the carbon to get rid of the gloss finish. I think it looks great, and it matches everything that we did on the car, including the satin clear roof as well as the lip. So one thing I did do was, this is held on by plastic clips normally. As you can see, the holes on the top. I went ahead and inserted some M5 nutserts on the top of the plastic bumper area. What we'll do is go ahead and put some M5 Downstar hardware in there with a nice little beauty washer on top. And I think that'll look a lot nicer than the plastic push pins that they use. And just a little M3 guy head on it so that it'll go in nice and smooth. All right, well, just like that, that thing's installed. We do need to get our STI badge that goes over there, as well as our new Subaru badge that goes in the center there. But overall, the aesthetic is really nice. It's gonna tie all the carbon stuff together as well. And yeah, it's a great, fresh look. I love it. You guys with a keen eye probably also picked up on our Grimspeed wind diverter or air diverter plate. This also has a cool little tool tray in it. I'm gonna go ahead and put some magnets on the bottom of this and make this magnetic, so when we do nuts and bolts, we can set them here. This is also combined with a radiator stay, which is pretty cool. You pop the rubber grommets out of your factory radiator stays, pop them in here, and fasten this down with some M8s. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this install by just popping in the plastic clips that go here. We are gonna retain the factory plastic clips on this one because those are giant, and I have some brand new ones here at the shop. All right guys, the one thing we keep around the shop is miscellaneous plastic fasteners. You can order a lot of really cool bulk kits on Amazon for these plastic fasteners, but as I said earlier, they do always break. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop them in, and this Grimspeed radiator shroud will be finalized. All right, well there you have it, lads. Everything is in. I had a lot of time and effort put into those wheel wells. Thinking about it while I was working on the very last one this morning was, man, I probably invested a day and a half in creating those wheel well shrouds inside to seal off the wide body kit from the elements. It's hard to justify spending that many hours on something, but when you go to sleep at night knowing that you did the job right and you spent the time to do something awesome for the car that's gonna stay with it, and whoever wins this thing is gonna get to enjoy it and not have to be sweeping rocks out of their door jambs and up inside their front bumper, and this that is very rewarding. So I'm happy I did it. And as with anything, you learn something new every time you do jobs like that and projects like that. This time I actually learned how to heat mold the plastic. So it was really cool. I was able to actually make it look fairly stock in there. I hope you guys are enjoying this, and we're gonna keep crushing away at this thing. I cannot wait to give this car away to one of you guys. If you aren't already entered, head on over to throtl.com. Any purchase you make, whether it be a car part, merchandise, you name it. If we sell it on our site, every dollar it costs you, you're getting one entry to win this STI, and you're not gonna regret it, boys. This is a badass car, and one of you guys is gonna drive it home one of these days. So I look forward to handing the keys over to one of you. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.